Tonight we're going to talk about step 9, which says, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Steve, what does that mean to you?
This means to me, this step, that this is a personal responsibility to make my amends to the people that I stole from, dishonest with, cheating, and it also brought my level of freedom up to another height, plus my spiritual principles.
What about you, Kaylin?
To me, this step means looking at the people that I've harmed, and I think the first time I did that, I walked into that with expectations that they would have a certain kind of response, and when I didn't get that, that was very difficult. So as I worked through them times after that with my sponsor, I found that I was able to make these amends, apologize for things, and not expect something in return, and it just allowed me to have that freedom to and allow them to be able to change in the long run.
That's good. Garrett?
This step is awesome because this is allowing me to open that cage and make an amend for myself mostly, and admit that I do have faults and I have made faults, and release that stuff, drop the weight off my shoulders, and sweep up my side of the street.
That's good. Austin?
Well, for me on my 9th step, I kind of treated it like Congress treats an amendment. They don't go back and apologize or say they're sorry for the past one. They just change it. And that's all I did with mine. I didn't say I was sorry. I just recognized that my behavior was wrong, and I told them I was going to change my behavior. And change behavior, I believe, is the best apology.
That's good. Robin?
This step for me is basically taking the list I had made in step 8 and putting it into action. Making these amends with people that I have harmed in the past. I am responsible for my actions. I'm not responsible for the outcome after that.
You just heard personal testimonies on what step 9 means to these 5 people. Tonight we're going to go through the literature on what it is to work a step 9. And it's a true blessing to hear, and every one of those perspectives aligns with the literature. And there's just a very, very special feeling in the house tonight when you see the anniversaries, because you know it works. And if, as you heard from the parents, Brian's mom, she didn't think the day would come. She was waiting for that phone call from the police or the mortician that he's gone. And I know what it's like. My mom's here right now. It was a sad state of existence that my mom could only sleep good when I was locked up. And that ties directly into the amends. That my mom and dad had to live a life that they could rest at night knowing I was incarcerated, in detox, or in treatment. But if I wasn't in one of those 3 places, they stayed up most of the night wondering when the phone was going to ring and the person on the other end of the line was going to say, he's dead. Lord, I thank you for another day above ground and out of prison. Lord, I thank you for the people that are here in this room that should be dead, me included. Lord, I ask that you give me the strength. It's been a long day, a long week, a long month, and definitely a long year. But I'm still here. So I'm going to give it my best shot tonight, but even that is not good enough, so I need you to help me. So please give me the words to say with the literature that you have put in place for people like us, that we may learn to continue to progress in a way that will elevate us into a freedom that we did not know existed. A freedom that allows us to have joy in spite of our circumstances. A freedom that allows us to walk in forgiveness in spite of our sin. A freedom that allows us to be grateful even though we made a lot of mistakes. Lord, continue to work on us. We need it. In your name we pray, amen. So every week I go through kind of a recap of the steps, and I use this sanctuary floor as an example of our addiction. And our addiction, it has a lot of different components to it, as you heard from the testimonies. You saw a daughter, you saw a family, you saw restoration. But while we're active in addiction, over here it can be my financial mess, my legal mess, my mental health, just my overall health. My family problems, my inability to be a father and a husband and an employee or even an employer. I mean, everything was a mess. So by working a first step, you kind of step out of the mess. And the first step out of the mess gets you one step closer to the message. The first step out of the mess gets you one step closer to the message. So you take a step up out of all the chaos and you admit you're powerless over your addiction and your life had become unmanageable. You can see the unmanageability and the powerlessness from a different elevation because you took a step out of what you were doing. The second step says came to believe. First you show up, you came, then you come to by sticking around. It's one thing to show up, it's another thing to stay there. Came to believe. My belief came through you. I just taught about this on Sunday at our church. I've never been academically strong. I'm a slow learner. It's hard for me to read. So where I started to believe in God is I saw the God in you. So I came to believe that a power that I was questioning at the time, greater than myself. And how I had to come to the conclusion to believe in a power greater than myself is like, I got myself here. But I wasn't ready to admit that yet. Because I was blaming Jimmy or Julie or Jim or the PO or the boss. Everybody else's fault. So I came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. The insanity is all that chaos. The sanity, I thought, the reason why a guy like me had to go through 11 treatments, I thought the insanity was the way I acted in my addiction. Yes, that was insane, but if I'm honest with myself, the insanity is in between my two ears. And I'm here to tell you I'm still insane. But I've learned to live by principles. I don't let my feelings take me out anymore. So I came to believe that a power greater than myself could do it, but I have to do the work. God will not do it for you. God will do it with you. Could restore me to sanity. Then I'm up now on the third step. And it's kind of a little bit smaller than the sanctuary floor, but I had to make a decision. Now, I haven't done a very good job of making decisions up until this point. So I have to be honest with myself again and really, say, okay, I gotta believe in this because I haven't done a very good job, and I was still walking in guilt and condemnation. So I made a decision to turn my will, my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions, and my life, my service. It isn't about what, like I talked about capacity earlier, it isn't about if I'm tired or not. I still got to show up. See, I was the type of guy that my decisions meant nothing. They were never backed up with action. And they tell me addiction is cunning, baffling, and powerful. So I could have decided in treatment that I wasn't going to smoke crack anymore, but I still smoked it. Or not going to drink or partake in those things. So I made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood Him. I didn't understand Him then, but I still turned my life over. And how did I do that? I continued to work the steps. You will know if a person has turned their will and their life over to the care of God as they understand them, if they continue to work the steps. And because I've already worked step 2, and I believe now that a power greater than myself could, I haven't seen it happen yet, but I had enough belief that it could happen. It hasn't happened yet. But again, I saw it in you happening. And I said, then somebody says, God isn't going to lose His reputation over you. So why not give this a try? I've tried dope. I've tried living on the streets. I've tried being a thief. I tried doing all this. So why not try something that could actually help me? Why is it that we will only try things that hurt us? So now, here's this stage, and with God, once I finally made the decision, I thought I had made the decision many a times, but I truly didn't make the decision. I told you I made the decision, but there was never any action. I still did whatever I felt like doing. If I was tired, I didn't go. If I was angry, I would act out, those things. So now I've made a decision. So within the realm of my life, my mind, my body, and my soul, okay? Within the realm of me, I'm not all bad. But there's a side of me that is extremely twisted. Just nasty. It's still here. It hasn't gone away. And it's in all of you too, so don't think I'm the only one. So within that, so if you look at, here's my life now, it's endless, this new platform. Within that, there's, and I don't know how big it is or how small, but I know it's there. So this is where the steps start to get a little more condensed. and scary. You know, if I was working a first step, I could jump on it over here. First step, I could jump on it over here. Or, you know, this is kind of easy. The second step, it's got a lot of room to wiggle on because I've done it 100 times. And even the third step, I can fake it. But now I got to get real specific, and this is a little smaller step. But sometimes when it's small, it's really big. And sometimes when it's big, it's really small. Why do we major in the minors? So I made a step, because I'm not all bad. But I had to make a searching and fearless moral inventory of myself. There's some good stuff over here about me I found out through my relationship with God. I'm good over there, but this is the stuff I never wanted to look at. And these steps are thinner. So I made a searching and fearless moral inventory of myself. And then, this is the second time I've had to admit. We're not good at admitting things. We're not good at making decisions. So we need guidance. So the only thing that we are good at doing is admitting that we're not wrong. And we'll get to that in step 10. So now I admit to God, to myself, and another human being the exact nature of my wrongs. You hear me say it all the time. But I got to be repetitive with you because a lot of you are not doing this, even since we've been going through it. So God knows, I know, but the other person doesn't. I'm about ready to reveal myself to another person. I've hid myself from those people all the time, but I really haven't hid myself. Anything I hide usually manifests itself through behavior. Just was talking to one of my friends last night that was locked in a hotel room. I mean, it's like we punish ourselves. Why? We have to look at these dark sides. So I admit to God, to another human being, the exact nature around. So now I'm starting to accumulate some information about myself. So now I'm at the sixth step. And I become entirely ready, like, okay, for the first time in my life, I was willing to look over there. I worked those steps. Those steps are longer. They're not as thin as these. They're not as scary as these. And a lot of us never even get to these steps because they're thinner. The vertical on these is a little higher than the vertical there, right? Because I'm going straight up here. But who am I getting closer to? And as I go straight up, I'm elevated, and stuff is starting to fall off me. So now I'm here at the sixth step, and I became entirely ready to have God, who I turned my life over to down there, that I started to believe in the second step down there, to have God, because I tried to stop lying. I tried to stop cheating. I tried to stop quitting. I tried to stop smoking. I tried to stop drinking. I tried to stop taking shortcuts. So now I got to say, I am not only sick and tired, I'm sick of me. I'm sick of me. I'm sick of living like this. So I become entirely ready to have God, not me, removed. And then I come up and I'm at the seventh step. Now look I'm not going like this anymore. It's more like this. And that's why a lot of us never get to this point. But I'm here to tell you, if you're willing to climb a peak like this, it's worth it. So I humbly ask God to remove my shortcomings. And if I do not allow God to remove my shortcomings, those shortcomings are going to allow me to continue to come up short in life. And if I'm not admitting my character defects, and I'm not telling somebody my wrongs, the exact nature, if I'm not identifying my fears and resentments, and if I don't believe that a power greater than myself, my short is coming. And I got here because my whole life I've come short. But now, last week we talked about the eighth step, and it's a different canvas. It's different now. I mean, I like these slow elevations because I was still kind of close to that addiction that, if I'm honest with myself, I kind of like to smoke crack. But now I'm farther away from it. It's scary up here that I may be really doing this time. So now I make the transition to the eighth step. And with that transition, I have to look at the vertical now on the other step. Now I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm all the way up here. I've never been here before. And I look up there, and that scares me. I look down there, and that scares me. But then I remind myself, how did I get from one step to another? Courage. So now last week we became willing to make amends to everybody. Well, don't tell yourself, well, how can I remember everybody I harmed? You don't have to. Whoever God brings to your memory, because God's going to you already turn your life. But tonight we're on the 9th step. We're on the 9th step. Boy, you look different up here. And I'm kind of grateful that you're this far away from me because I really don't want to make my amends to you. But the 9th step says, made direct. The only time people like you and I are direct when we're emotional. That is not the 9th step. The 9th step says made direct amends to such people. That means not everybody on your 8th step. Except when to do so would injure them or others. Look at how much lighter and higher I am, and higher for the right reasons. As I stand in front of you right now, I'm looking down like, wow, I'm so far away from my addiction. I can see my relationship with you from a different perspective up here at the 9th step. But now I got to climb down. And I have to come and make that amends. So I have to remind myself before I go to make the direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. I have to remind myself I made a list of the people I was going to talk to. And I can do this because I asked God to remove my shortcomings. And I will be able to face it because He's taken away my defects of character. And I am relational now because I admitted to God, another human being, the exact natures of my wrongs. And I'm not who I used to be because I wrote down my fears and my resentments. And even though I'm upset with the person that I got to make amends to, as one of the people in the video said, it ain't about me. It's not about them. It's about me cleaning my side of the street. And then I got to remind myself, you remember, Jeff? You turned your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand Him. The understanding of that you need to have of God is He wants you up there. But now that I've been up there, I got to come back down, and I have to believe, man, this is going to be insane to talk to this person. What are they going to say? What are they going to do? What am I going to say? What am I going to do? Remember, I came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity? So I remind my insanity about my power in my God's sanity. Then I say to myself, oh, wow, this list is compiled because what happened down here. Let's give God a hand. So it says, made direct. That means we got to come real with it. You do not go out and make amends without talking to your sponsor because we're the type of people that are known to have motives. It says direct amends to such people. That means not everybody. It says wherever possible. A lot of times you have to be intentional. A lot of times your sponsor will tell you, wait for God to present it to you. When you get to this step, you will be freaked out who you'll run into in the grocery store. And they live clear across town. What are they doing in this part of town? But it says, wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them and others. So there's certain things you don't want to talk about. There's certain things that only a living amends, that you don't need to tell this person this. Because sometimes we're actually known to want to hurt people. So we get this mixed up like I'm going to go make my amends, but our motive is to hurt them. So it says in NA, I'm going a little different with it tonight. I'm starting with NA. It says, this process is called on us to examine our lives. Well, we're good at examining ourselves now because we're at the 9th step. We're willing to do things that we previously were not willing to do. Identify our character defects. We did that in 6. We asked God's help in 7. It says, and became aware on how we have harmed when we acted in those defects. You never know the extent of the harm that we've had on people. And you never even know who you think you harmed. It might have harmed somebody else too. But the thing is, it says, now we must do everything we can to repair the harm we've caused. It is no coincidence that Brian got his 2-year medallion. I love and know his parents, that God graced him with to make the amends right here in front of us as a lesson. You can't make that up. I mean, with God, He'll start showing you things that you've never seen before. It says, once again, with the help of a higher power, we simply have to walk through the fear. We know that fear is described as false evidence appearing real. It's very important that you grasp that when it comes to this step. We always make stuff out to be more than it actually is, which prevents us from actually doing it. We go to worst case scenarios. And check out what it says here. We have to walk through the fear, face everything and rise, face everything and recover. A lot of times fear is false evidence appearing real. We make things up in our head through assumption of what it's going to look like, and that gives us the excuse to never walk in it. And it goes on to say, we have the 8-step list and we know that what we have to do. However, knowing and doing are two different things. I'm going to say that again. We all know we got to get sober, but why aren't we working the steps? Knowing and doing. See, that was my mistake and why I had to go through 11 treatments. When they did an intervention or I got in detox again or wherever it was going on and I was in a pinch, I would say, well, I know what I got to do. And that was true. I knew what I had to do. I even went so far through egotistical pride and said, I could probably run a treatment center. Well, why am I still smoking crack? Knowing and doing are two different things. It says, for each of our amends, every possibility exists. From being held fully accountable to be completely, you don't know what they're going to say. Sometimes you're going to be held fully accountable, and sometimes you're going to be excused. We must be willing to follow through regardless of the potential outcome. Once again, with the help of a higher power, we simply have to walk through the fear and go on. It's so important to really, really grasp that in regards to that. Though the prospect of making amends may frighten us, we turn to the God of our understanding for strength. It says, but whether they are willing to accept us or not, we must go on. The risk we take is sure to be rewarded by increased personal freedom. See, we got to start taking the right type of risk. We had no problem taking the wrong type of risk. It says the spiritual principles of honesty and humility that we've learned in earlier steps are invaluable. So all the previous steps have prepared us for this particular step. And it's so important to really, really grasp it. It says we would never be able to approach the people to whom we owe amends in the spirit of humility. Brian just said it. Recovery is all about humility. In the spirit of humility, if we hadn't been practicing these principles before now, our path has led us to humbly accept who we have been and who we are becoming. You cannot be who you were and who you're supposed to be at the same time. We always want to be evolving. It says, resulting in a sincere desire to make amends to all those who we have harmed. To be certain our motives are based on spiritual principles, we find it helpful to reaffirm our decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God, of our understanding before me. See, you need God's help here. You don't go in ill-equipped. You don't go in like, I know what I'm going to say. You use God's help with the help of your sponsor, and like, okay, and you don't even have to, like Brian said in his medallion, right? He said, well, I didn't know what I was going to say up here. I was just going to say whatever was on my heart. See, a lot of us want to rehearse. We think we're in a play or something. Well, I'm going to walk in there. I'm going to sit down. Depending on what they're looking like or what they're wearing, I'm going to say this. Depending on their body language, I'm going to say that. That's not how this works. You receive spiritual guidance in regards to it, and by doing this, you reaffirm it. It says, we should not expect a pat on the back. You cannot live recovery like, oh, good job, Jeff. You're still sober. After a while, it's no different than my professional life. When I hire a person to do a job, yes, I say thank you, but your performance is expected. They taught me that a long time ago when I was playing Bantam hockey and I got called up into the high school level in 9th grade and I wasn't even in high school. The coach said, hey, you're not going to get a pat on the back every time you come off the ice. Now it's expected. But so many of us are like, well, that sounds conditional. Well, recovery is conditional. It's conditional on how you work the program. Well, I think you don't love me unconditionally. No, I love you unconditionally. God loves you unconditionally. But there are conditions to doing this. Check this out. Living for a pat on the back or praise for living in accordance with the principles of recovery. I mean, yes, initially I'm happy that you were honest. Yes, initially, and it still feels good for people to say that, like I said early on in the meeting. But it says we must let go of expectations. I've heard it said the higher the expectation, the lower your serenity. I had the type of day that I expected all four wheels of my truck to fall off when I was driving down the street. That's what kind of day it was. So if it would have happened, I wouldn't have freaked out. And it still may happen. The day's not over. But some of us just have these expectations that are so unrealistic. We now have to make our amends, and we'll turn out and leave the results up to God. Leave it up to God. We may humbly ask for now think about that all by itself. Let's say I go to make an amends to somebody that I love and respect, that I hurt deeply, and they don't forgive me. That unforgiveness motivates me. If I'm free and if I have really worked the previous 8 steps. If I go to make amends without working the previous 8 steps, that unforgiveness is going to give me more shame and condemnation. I'm going real deep with you now. You need to understand what I just said. See, you always know where you are on how you respond or react. There's a difference between reacting and responding. I like to respond. If I react, then I'm emotional, and I'm going to say something I wish I wouldn't have said. But if I step back from what you just said or did to me and I respond to you, I'm coming from principles. And the bottom line is this: the higher you go with God, the less you got to say about people. Because they're going to stomp, spit at you, backstab you, run over you, and do all those things. But it ain't about them, it's about you. And quite frankly, a lot of what they do to you is you reaping what you've done to others. So don't get offended if somebody steals from you when you used to be a thief. Don't get offended with the audacity how they lied to me in their recovery. I mean, are you kidding me? The king of lies. I mean, oh, I can't believe they're slacking at work. Don't they know we got deadlines when you were high every day at work? I mean, we got it. I love my friend who I met with last night. I said, you're not going down that road. He goes, absolutely not. These people shouldn't even be talking to me. See, that's character, in my opinion. The fact that any of us got a shot at this, we should be grateful. Because we have burnt bridges, we have walked away from second chances, and we have spit on people that have tried to help us. But God is still here, and He sends people to help us. And I'm gonna hang on to and attach myself like Kelly to the people that are willing to help me, because not everybody is. Some people have given up on me. And they have every right to give up on me with my track record. So I accept the fact that they gave up on me, and I move on. I don't judge them. They're not on my 4-step list. I pray for them, and I attach myself for people that haven't given up on me. And let me tell you, there's a lot of people. And what it goes on to say here is so important. It says, we may humbly ask for forgiveness, but, oh, I don't like that but there. If they don't receive it, we let that expectation, knowing we have done our best. All God wants is your best. That's it. It says, changing the way we live is a lifetime process. This is no crack hit. I'm good. I'm still not good. I got a long ways to go, and I will until I'm in heaven. So when I make a mistake, not if, I got to learn from it. And check out what it says. It's a lifelong process. So many people come to me after a year or two of clean, like, oh my God, I said, what do you think this is going to change? How long did it take you to get into this mess? 20 years? 6 months later, you try to think you're Mother Teresa? I mean, Bishop Earl is finally on the other side. He was 20-some years in addiction. Now he's 30 years in freedom. See, when you get close to those ratios, I think it changes. But it took a minute for me to become as addicted as I was and as crazy as I was. So it's a lifelong process. It goes on to say, amends of this nature can't be made in a 5-minute apology, no matter how heartfelt. Although an admission of a wrong and an apology may be a starting point, we need to go on by making a concerted daily effort to stop hurting our loved ones. When I was studying for this, God gave me this. He says to me, people that stop hurting have stopped hurting. I'm going to say that again. I don't think you caught it. People that have stopped hurting, stop hurting. Hurt people hurt people. So I love what this literature says. I mean, I don't think any of us really ever wanted to hurt somebody. And a lot of us hurt people because we were hurt. But I've learned that, I didn't want to leave my kids for crack. I didn't want to have another man raise them. That's not my heart. I don't want to have a company, lose a company, have a job, lose a job, live on the streets and eat out of dumpsters. That's not what I wanted. It wasn't in my high school yearbook. Most likely to eat out of dumpsters. But I became all those things. Including I became the guy that used to size up men and women in my first couple of treatment centers to say that I'll never be as bad as them. And I was worse. And a lot of that is just coming to the realization of being honest. It says, because the action we take in this step can be a profound impact on other people, we don't want to just carelessly step out and start making amends without first discussing it with ourselves. Don't make amends when you're newly sober. They don't want to hear it. Work a program. Don't make the amends. By working a program, you're starting the amends process. Check out what it says here. It says, some of us have felt compelled to make an amends on impulse, just to ease our conscience. However, we usually ended up doing more harm than good. Have you ever made an amends and have to go back and make the same thing, amends for the same thing and worse? Recovery is not about being in a hurry. It says our recovery is also a way of making amends to ourselves. We treated ourselves horribly in active. Why do we want to punish ourselves? Why do we want to put ourselves in jail? You didn't get put in jail because you got caught. You're not homeless because you got caught. You didn't lose your kids because you got caught and you were smoking. You lost your kids and the respect of your children because you don't respect yourself and you're punishing yourself that God wants to free you on, whatever that is. You got to speak the truth. You don't want to hurt your kids, but you hurt them. And you didn't just hurt them once, you hurt them many times. So we got to figure out what's hurting you. I said this to the same friend last night. I said, my daughter was a year old, and I went to Vegas, and she had surgery, and I left the same day she had surgery with a pocket full of cocaine. Didn't come back for weeks. Why would I do that? I'm not a bad person, but I'm hurting. I'm hurting. I've been hurting ever since I known I was hurting. And I have to get in these rooms. It says the guilt and shame we felt each time we harmed another human being being took quite a toll. See, a lot of us stay high because of guilt and shame. And I often say this to men and women in these rooms. I say, you're so overwhelmed with your consequences, so instead of facing them, you run and get high and create more just to come back to deal with the original consequences compiled with additional ones when you couldn't deal with it in the first place. Why are you punishing yourself? It says the most important results of the 9th step will be found within ourselves. Let me tell you something. This is a critical step. I mean, you can't control the reaction of other people. I've done a 9th step many times over the years. Today, all day long, people reacted in ways I didn't understand. But it didn't affect me like it used to. And the reason why that is because of this step. Because of this step. There are people all these years later that still have not forgiven me. That's not about me. It is about me, but I can't focus on that. I did my amends and whatever else. And it says we begin to heal from our addiction and no longer live with many regrets. I'm here to tell you, I have no regrets. I have not one regret. I'm not proud of everything I've done, and I have served severe consequences, and still am, all these years later. But I don't have any regrets. Everything that I've done has made me who I am. And let me tell you, this church, this program, none of it would exist unless I smoked crack. I'm grateful for my addiction. My addiction brought me to you. Let me tell you, I run in a lot of financial and business circles, CEOs, lawyers. No one can touch you. No one's got the heart that you got. The thing is, I can believe it for you, but if you don't believe it for yourself, nothing's going to happen. But the problem is we've been hurt so many times and people told us stuff what they thought they meant, but they ended up doing something opposite of what they told us, so now we don't trust nobody. It's not, you can't live your life not trusting. It says, we grow spiritually and find out that we are truly gaining a new level of freedom in our lives. Our past is just that, the past. You can't do anything about it. We have to put it behind. Don't let your past dictate your future so that we no longer hovers over the edge of our thoughts. And some of us tonight, our past is haunting us and hovering over. Some of us are still paying the consequences, I am, of our past, waiting for a chance to haunt our present. One of the most paradoxical aspects of our recovery is that we are thinking of ourselves less. We learn to love ourselves more. Think about how powerful that principle is. If we think about ourselves less, we'll begin to love ourselves more. That makes no sense. I've heard it said in Purpose-Driven Life, don't think less of yourself, just think of yourself less. See, we got to be taught the right way. And what it says, this step teaches a great deal on humility, love, and selflessness. It says, we begin to heal from our addiction and no longer live with many regrets. We grow spiritually and find out that we're truly gaining a new level of freedom in our lives. Our past is just that, the past. I don't know why I'm reading again. It meant to be read again. We have to put it behind so we no longer hovers over the edge. One of the most paradoxical aspects, probably because I can't say that word, of our recovery is that thinking of ourselves less, we learn to love ourselves more. Because of the love we extend to others, you will know how much you value yourself on how you value others. I'll say that again. You will know how much you value yourself is how you value others. And it's so important that we understand. We realize our own value by valuing other people. We learn that we can contribute and make a difference, not just in NA, but in the world at large. As a result of working the 9th step, we are free to live in the present, able to enjoy each moment and experience gratitude for the gift of recovery. See, recovery is a gift, and if you open the gift, you're actually able to be present. Some of us aren't even present tonight. I know what that feels like. I'm in yesterday, I'm in tomorrow, I'm still at work, but I'm sitting here, or I'm with Susie Q that I'm meeting at 9:30. I mean, just be honest. I mean, it says, this step should not be avoided, but we're good at avoiding stuff. If we do, we are reserving a place in our programs for relapse. Do we understand that we reserve places for relapse without even knowing it? The ism arrives before the alcohol is drank. I'll say that again. The ism arrives before the alcohol is consumed. We are reserving a place in our program for relapse. Pride, fear, and procrastination often seems an impossible barrier. They stand in the way of progress and growth. The important thing is that we take action to be ready to accept the reactions. You don't know how anybody's going to react. You can't control them. You would have never had to have made the amends if you didn't do the act. You're upset with them because you did it? I can't believe my wife doesn't, or I can't believe my husband does, or I can't believe my boss does. Well, your boss would have never thought this way if you wouldn't have done it. I mean, I don't think my mom worked for Elina, I think for 30, 40 years. I don't think her boss said, did Gene Hill steal from me? Never gave the guy a place to think that. So don't get offended when you give people places to think. So that's why we got to make the amends. And it says it's so important that we grasp this. It says the important thing is that we take action and be ready to accept their reaction of the persons that we had harmed. We make amends to the best of our ability. Sometimes, I'm sorry, I did wrong to you. I'm doing here's how it's supposed to go. I'm doing my best. I'm changing my behavior. Is there anything I can do for you? That is the explanation point after the amends. People come to me to make amends all the time, and if they got a good sponsor, they'll say, is there anything I can do for you? A lot of us just say we're sorry, we own the behavior, but to close it out, to bridge that gap, you ask the question. And somebody recently did that to me at a luncheon. I said, no. What you can do for me is stay sober. Sometimes I said, yeah, give me my $100. Then you be honest. I don't have it. But I would like to establish a payment plan. So you got an opportunity to really exercise honesty. Not, I'll get it to you later, I'll call you at 4. The important thing is we take action and ready to accept their reaction. It says, in some cases, amends is beyond our means. It's the willingness. Some people are dead. Some people, you sold them dope for the first time and they overdosed. I went to treatment with a gentleman that was an executive, and I got him hooked on crack. Never seen him since. His addiction destroyed his family. I don't know if I'll ever see him again because I'd like to make an amends. I didn't make him smoke the crack, but I introduced it to him. That's what I'm talking about. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Who did you introduce to this stuff? When you get free, you can talk like I'm talking right now. And maybe he'll watch this on YouTube, and maybe he already is, because thousands of people are. And maybe he'll come to see me, because I'm willing. And I'll say to him after I do it, what can I do to make it up to you? That's truly what this is about. I don't know about you, but I've done some dirt. It says, it's so important to, and you know what? I haven't thought of that for 10 years. But God just brought it to my memory. So that tells me it's about ready to happen. I'm not that intelligent. And I've done a lot of acid and cocaine and dope, so this isn't all together. So whatever reason God just brought that to me, I'm getting excited. I'm not sitting like, oh, yeah, it wasn't the right thing to do. Yeah, I wish I wouldn't have done it. But what can I do about it? Get high? Because I feel sorry for myself? Or I can wait till God brings him to me, or I see him in passing and I say, hey. And trust me, it ain't just one person. That's just who God brought me now. And here should be an example for you. I'm a pastor of a fast-moving church. And God has used me, and I say this with humility, to found the largest transitional program there is in this area. And if he can do that to a guy who sold crack and somebody lost their family because of my selling of crack, he can do anything through you. So quit beating up on yourself. Quit thinking that God is mad at you. Just be willing. Be willing to own it. Be willing to say, you know what? I wish I wouldn't have done that. I did it when I was in it, but I'm not blaming my addiction. That was the wrong thing to do, and I own it. And what it goes on to say, it says, however, we should, and it doesn't stop there, because that man was a father that had children. It's not just the person that's affected. The ripple effect of our addiction is huge, but the ripple effect of your recovery is even bigger. I'm here to tell you, I'm living proof. And it says we recommend turning legal problems over to lawyers, and financial or medical problems, just call the people you owe money to. They're going to keep calling. They will find your new number with technology these days, trust me. And just talk to them. Hey, I'm a drug addict. I'm an alcoholic, or even business stuff. I made some bad decisions. I'd like to work with you. And if they say no, at least you know the answer. But a lot of us don't want to know the answer. Call the debtors, the collection agents. I've done it. Hey, man, I owe you 10 grand. I had to do it recently a couple years ago. I'm in default. How can we work out a solution? And let me tell you, everyone has worked out and still working out. I quit complaining about it, and I said, well, thank God I got a job to pay for it. So I had to go get more streams of income. But don't run from this stuff. Let the professionals. The ER. You've been to the emergency room 50 times to get Vicodin. Got Vicodin 20 times. 30 times it was waste of time. And you got an $80,000 bill. And they're mailing it to your mom, to your cousin when you lived there and you were high, your 4/5th employer you've had in the last 6 months. And everybody's getting your mail but you. Call them. It's not going to go away. And just be honest. Because you know what would really be a tragedy? When you do get it together 10 years from now and you're sailing on in favor and abundance, and I can't get that because I never took care of that. And you're way beyond that. And you could have wiped that out 5 years ago. but you ran from it, and now it stopped what you were doing in your freedom. See, it's so important that you get coached correctly. Contacting someone, and for those of you whose credit is smashed and you're in debt up to your eyeballs, let me tell you something. God's got a plan for you. Just don't quit. Just don't quit. God's got a plan for you, and it's going to work out because you're a good person. And when He blesses you, if He does, not if He blesses you, when you're going to be a blessing to people. And it says part of learning how to live successfully is learning what we need help. Contacting someone who is still hurting from the burn of our misdeeds can be dangerous. I remember one time that I went to pay a dope dealer when I was 60 days sober because I felt bad. When I must have owed so much money on it, but this guy I felt bad about. No, I wanted to see him because I wanted to see if he had dope. See, we have to learn to be honest with ourselves. And it says, step 9 helps us with the guilt and helps others with their anger. Sometimes the only amend we can make is to stay clean. We owe it to ourselves and to our loved ones. We approach those we have harmed with humility and patience. Many of our sincere well wishes may be reluctant to accept our recovery as real. You can't fault somebody to think that this is just going to last for a month, because we've given them facts that that's true. We must remember the pain that they have known. People have known our pain because we were in pain. And many miracles will occur. Many of us who were separated from families succeed in establishing relations, but not all of us. All of us will not get restored with our families. It's not always the case. That's why God gave you this family. That's why God gave us this family. It says, a lot of courage and faith goes into making amends. A lot of spiritual growth results. Courage plus faith equals growth. We are achieving freedom from the wreckage of our past. We will want to keep our house in order by practicing continuous personal inventory in step 10. 12 steps and 12 traditions. Good judgment, a careful sense of timing, courage, prudence. These are the qualities we shall need when we take step 9. There will be those who ought to be dealt with just as soon as we become reasonably confident that we can maintain our sobriety. You can't become reasonably confident about maintaining sobriety in 30 days, 60 days. The 9th step is the 9th step because it's the 9th step. The 9th step is because if you still have shortcomings, character defects, fears, and resentments, and you're operating in your own strength, when they tell you something that you need to hear but you don't want to hear, you're out. You're going out. It says there will be those who we can make only partial restitution. Hey, I owe you 100. Well, just give me 20. Give me whatever you got. Or don't give me anything at all. Some of us it's 100,000. Some of us it's 1 million. Let's complete disclosures, do them or others more harm than good. There will be other cases where action ought to be deferred, and still others where we carry the very nature of the situation. We shall never be able to make direct or personal contact at all. After the 9th step in AA comes the promises. And my prayer is that each and every one of you get to this. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will know how our experience can benefit others. No regrets. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations that used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They're all over this room. They are being fulfilled among us sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always, always materialize if we work for them. Matthew 5 as we close. God says, therefore, if you are offering a gift at the altar and remember that your brother or sister has something against you, that's the 9th step. Leave the gift in front of the altar. Go be reconciled to them. Then come. The gift that you have to offer God is the message. God bless you.